How's it going, everyone? Welcome to my channel. My name is Swanee, and for today's video, I'm going to be going over some beginner tips and tricks to help get you started in Wuchang Fallen Feathers. Now, Wuchang is a game that hits you with a ton of tutorials pretty early on, and things can very quickly get a bit overwhelming and confusing. So I'm going to go over some tips that I wish I knew way sooner in my playthrough and hopefully help you out. Now, some of these tips are going to be a bit rapid fire, and then some of them are going to go a little more in depth. And if at any point this video helped you out, then consider giving me a thumbs up because it helps me out in the algorithm and it helps spread this video to more players that could use the tips. And with that said, let's go ahead and just jump right into it. So the first tip that I have for you all during your playthrough is to keep an eye out for enemy traps. Things like ambushes, pressure plates, tripwires, explosives, just different things in the environment that can catch you off guard and can lead to a quick death. It's never a good feeling when you have a ton of Mercury saved up, and then out of nowhere you hit a trap, or there's an enemy that comes around the corner and knocks you off a ledge, and then you lose all your progress and basically have to start over. So I would get into the habit of kind of peeking around corners and getting an idea of where most of the enemies are before you go barging into a new area. That way you don't spring any traps. And speaking of traps, when you come across a trap in the environment, try using it against the enemies. There's no need to run in and fight every single enemy when you can just simply let them take themselves out using their own traps. So next up, let's talk about Mercury, which is the in-game currency. Now, in Souls-like games, they're called souls, in Elden Ring, they're called runes, and in Wuchang, it's called Mercury. Now, the amount of Mercury that you have on your character at a given time is shown at the top right corner of the screen, and whenever this symbol lights up, that means you have enough Mercury that you can level up your character. And there's no need to carry any more Mercury than what is needed at a given time. Don't risk losing out on your Mercury. It's always a big pain in the butt when you're going out exploring and something kills you and then you can't make it back to your body to recover your Mercury, and then you die again and then you lose out on all of it and then you just wasted your time. So luckily, in Wuchang Fallen Feathers, when you rest at any of the shrines and you head to the Impetus repository, you can spend your Mercury here at any time in exchange for skill points. So anytime I know I'm about to go into a boss fight or I'm about to go exploring in a dangerous area, I will spend all the Mercury that I can on skill points. That way I don't risk losing it all when I'm about to fight a tough enemy. And you don't have to spend your skill points immediately, you can just save them and bank them up for whenever you need them. Next up is a quick tip, but anytime you pause the game, it doesn't actually pause the game. The enemies will still be able to attack you when you're looking at your inventory and stuff. So anytime you pause to change your outfits or equip a new item, just make sure you do it in a safe place. Otherwise, the enemies are going to still attack you and kill you while you're not paying attention. Another quick tip is anytime you come across an elevator in the game, I would get in the habit of resetting the elevator anytime you ride it to the top or the bottom, because odds are something is going to kill you at the end of your elevator ride. Sometimes you ride an elevator and there's a boss fight at the top, or sometimes there's just a long travel before you get to the next shrine, and having to call down the elevator and wait for it and then ride it back up to the top over and over and over every single time you die can get a bit repetitive. So when you see the elevator and you ride it to the top, just send it back down to the bottom before you continue on. Trust me, you're going to thank me once you die and you have to re-ride the elevator like 8 times in a row. Next up, I'm going to talk about the donation box. Now, the donation box is going to appear at any of the sort of hub areas, like the little camps that you visit, and this is where you're going to find items that you forgot to pick up in the environment, or any of the DLC or Deluxe Edition items that you got when you purchased the Deluxe Edition. So if you're out exploring and maybe you happen to kill the boss at the same exact time that you died, or there's just a special item on the ground and you died and you couldn't pick it up in time, any of those items that were missing are going to show up here at the donation box. Next up, I want to talk about the Divination Crescents. Now, these are items that you want to place down on the ground to mark your location. Now, the environments in this game can be a bit confusing. There's always like 3 or 4 different paths that you can take, and it's hard to keep track of where you've been and where you still need to go. So placing down these Divination Crescents are going to help mark your location so you know which path you've been to and which paths you still need to take. The next tip is to try to get behind your enemies and hit them in the back with a heavy attack. Anytime you can sneak up on an enemy from behind and hit them in the back with a heavy attack, it's going to do a ton of damage and break their poise, and then they're going to drop down on one knee, and then you can hit them with an obliterate attack, which will do a ton of damage. This is a great way to deal with those bigger, thicker enemies that normally hit pretty hard, and it adds a bit of a stealth element to the game, and it really pays off to be stealthy and try to take out these enemies from behind. This also applies to boss fights. If you can dodge and get behind a boss during an encounter and hit them in the back with a full charged heavy attack, it might take 1 or 2 hits depending on your build, but doing this is a great way to break their poise. It will drop them down to one knee, and then you can hit them for a ton of damage. And trust me, doing this in boss fights is going to make the world of difference and is going to make some of those really hard boss encounters a lot easier. And speaking of boss encounters, some of the bosses can be pretty challenging if you enter a boss fight unprepared. So if you're stuck on a boss fight and you just can't beat it no matter what, then it's probably time to change your gear and maybe even your skills. Now luckily, when you rest at a shrine and you take a look at your skill menu, you can change your skills at any point during your playthrough. All you have to do is hover over top of a skill that you no longer want and hit the reset button. You can do this to individual skills, or you can do this to an entire skill tree and reset all the points in one go. Now, luckily, this is completely free. It doesn't cost you anything to do this, and you can do it as many times as you wish. So if your current skill set is just not helping you get through a boss fight and you just cannot beat it, then consider switching things up and maybe putting your skill points into a different weapon. Some weapon types just do way better against certain boss encounters. For example, I was using blunt weapons for a while. I was using the big axe, and I like to just beat people down with my big heavy attacks, but for some of those faster bosses, my slow axe was just not cutting it, so I had to switch everything up. I put all my skill points into a sword build, and using the sword just made me way faster, so I was able to counterattack just way quicker after I dodged, and some of the new skills that I learned gave me the option to parry abilities, which was a complete game changer in some of those boss fights. Another thing you can do if you're struggling with a certain area is to change your gear. You want to take a look at all of your outfits and their stats. Some of the outfits are going to have better resistances than others. So for example, there's a boss that does nothing but frost damage, and he was hitting me with tons of frost attacks. And then once you get frostbite, half of your stamina meter just goes away and you can only dodge so many times after that. And I was really struggling with this boss, but then I went and I put on frost resistant armor, and after doing that, it made the boss encounter a lot easier because I had a bunch of frost resistant, and since he only did frost attacks, I pretty much pooped on him, and then I was able to easily progress afterwards. So if you're stuck on a boss fight and they're kicking your butt, consider changing your skills and changing your outfit. Don't be stubborn and try to just stick to one loadout that's your favorite and try to brute force your way through everything, because you're going to learn real quickly you just can't do that. Now let's go over Aurum Feathers. These are feathers that you get from killing these birds that are scattered throughout the entire game. Now, anytime you're walking around and you hear this little bird whistling, this is an indicator that one of these Aurum birds is nearby, and you're going to want to make sure that you kill these, because every time you do, they're going to drop a feather, and then this is going to give you a pretty significant temporary buff. And these feathers are always good to activate right before you're about to enter a difficult area, or especially a boss fight, because any buff that you can get, even if it's temporary, is going to make a bit of a difference when you're in those tough encounters. So anytime you hear these birds, make sure you find it and kill it, because their feathers are very useful. Next, let's talk about the merchants and the different items that you can buy from them. Now, there's going to be 2 reoccurring merchants that you're going to see at all the hub areas. They're going to basically follow you throughout your playthrough, and their inventory is going to expand and add more items as you progress throughout the story and bring them more items in exchange. So as you're going around exploring in the environment and you pick up some random item and you don't know what it does, just check out the item's description and it will tell you which merchant you need to bring the item to. Then once you bring them said item, item, they will then have more items for you to purchase in their inventories. The same thing goes for boss fights. Anytime you have a major boss fight, you're going to want to take their item to the store merchant, and then you'll be able to exchange the boss item for a new outfit or a new weapon or whatever that new boss item might be. So anytime you find a weird item when you're exploring or you beat a boss, check back with the merchants. And speaking of merchants, there's actually a special merchant in the game, which is pretty rare, and you don't find this merchant until pretty later on in your playthrough, but this merchant uses bamboo shoots as their currency. And the bamboo shoots are these little tiny creatures that pop up out of the ground and they try to run away from you, and you have to kill them quickly or they'll disappear. This is also like the little loading screen symbol. You see these little guys kind of throughout the entire game, but anytime you come across one of these, you want to collect it. Like, make it your #1 priority, and if it disappears from you and you weren't able to catch it in time, then just go back to the previous shrine and reload the area and make sure you collect this bamboo shoot. You want to make sure you collect them whenever you see them because they're really rare, and you use these in exchange for the panda, and the panda has some really good store items. The items that the panda gives you, you don't want to miss out on. So whenever you see these little bamboo shoots, make sure it's a #1 priority to collect these. And since I'm on the topic of merchants, one quality of life thing that you can do is that during your playthrough, you're going to obtain a lot of these red mercury shoots, or these like red mercury flowers. And when you activate these are going to give you additional mercury. Now, you pick these up from defeating different enemies. You can just find these scattered throughout the environment. Now, you can activate them individually or you can activate them in bulk, but the fastest way to activate these and get all of your mercury all in one go is to just sell these to the merchants. That way you don't have to deal with like jumping in and out of all your menus and it being a real pain. Next up, let's talk about some of your different skills that you can activate in the game. Now, there's 6 different skill branches that you can choose from, 5 of which are tied to a specific weapon type. You have long swords, you have spears, you have one-handed swords, you have dual blades, and axes. So those 5 paths are going to be related to individual weapon types, but over here on the far left, this is going to pertain to pretty much all of the builds. So you're going to want to primarily focus on the left, because on the left-hand side, this is where you can upgrade things like your mana potency. This is going to increase the health recovered by your mana vase. There's also mana capacity. Putting points into this gives you extra mana charges. So for example, I have 8+ charges, so this will give me 8 additional mana vases that I can drink from anytime I take damage, thus prolonging my life, letting me take more hits. And of course, I can play the game a lot longer without getting killed. And this skill tree over on the left is where you're going to find Temperance upgrades to give you additional temper charges. And then of course, this is also going to give you additional stacks of Skyborn Might, and that is used to cast spells and weapon abilities and different things like that. So if I had to recommend anything, I would say obviously pick whichever weapon is your favorite and then level that up. And then while you're leveling up your favorite weapon, put points into the left skill tree and mainly focus on things on the left skill tree first, because this is going to pertain to pretty much every weapon build. And having upgraded mana vases and more Skyborn Might is going to make your character just way stronger in general. So I would personally maybe recommend focusing on one weapon at a time while also focusing on the left skill tree. And then if you have some extra skill points lying around, then maybe start focusing on a second skill tree for a second weapon. Next up, during your playthrough, you're going to encounter a number of different instances where you can interact with some blue smoke. It's going to normally tell you something. It's going to give you a hint as to what to do. Then if you activate the right emote, like let's say, for example, it asks you to do a prayer or something, just do whatever emote it asks, and then it will give you some sort of reward. So anytime you encounter this blue smoke, make sure you emote, and you can emote by hitting the select button on your controller. So did you know that you can transmog your outfits at any time to be whatever you want? Because I didn't for like 50 hours of my playthrough. But yeah, if you just go into your equipment menu down at the bottom of the screen, it says alter equipment. Just press this button and then you can change whatever your current selected outfit is into any other outfit. That way, if you have a good outfit with really good stats, but you don't like the way that it looks, you can just transmog it to look however you want while still having really good stats. I wish I knew about this way sooner, so that's why I'm telling you guys about it, so you don't make that same mistake. The next tip has to do with the Bone Whistle. Now, the Bone Whistle is an item that you can use in certain boss fights, and this is going to call one of your allies in to help you in the boss encounter. Now, you can't use the Bone Whistle in every single boss fight. It's mainly saved for some of the important ones. So whenever you see this pop up at the bottom of your screen during certain boss encounters, I recommend that you actually listen and use the Bone Whistle to call for help, because odds are you're probably going to need it. There was a couple instances where I used the Bone Whistle and I had someone come in and help me, just to find out that the boss ended up having 2 phases to the boss fight, and the ally that I called in to help ended up dying in the first phase anyway. So some of these boss fights are going to be extremely challenging, and you're going to need all the help you can get. So anytime it says that you can use the Bone Whistle, I recommend that you do so. Now, the next tip is another quick one, and it has to do with side quests. Now, there's a bunch of different side quests you can do by helping the random NPCs that you come across, and they're going to have you either fetch them a certain item or kill a certain boss, and after you do so, you have to go back and find that NPC and talk to them again to get your reward. Now, it is very easy to get lost in Wuchang Fallen Feathers, so if you need help finding the NPCs that you need to talk to, just go to the nearest shrine and go to the teleport tab, and when you hover over the different shrines that you can visit, there will be a picture of the NPC at the corresponding shrine. So if there's an NPC that you need to talk to for a side quest, their picture will be there, and then you can fast travel to that location, and then make sure you keep searching for that NPC in that area until you find them. Because if you just skip ahead and keep on progressing through the story, then you're going to miss out on getting the rewards from some of these side quests, and some of the rewards can be really, really good, so you don't want to miss out on any of the side quests. Now let's talk about how to activate your Temperance. Now, to access the Temper menu, you can find it at any of the shrines. It's over on the right-hand side. And in this menu, you can equip different needles to your arm, and then when you activate it, whatever needles you have equipped in your Temper menu will activate and will give your weapon a temporary buff. Now, you can get more Temper charges by unlocking them over on that left-hand skill menu that I talked about earlier, and you can also unlock new needles for different abilities in this skill tree as well. So just equip whatever needles you want for your current build, and then to activate your Temperance, you have to do it in your menu. Now, this is where I messed up in my playthrough. I went like 20 hours before realizing you have to manually activate your Temperance. I thought it was just always activated, but that's not the case. So what you want to do is add the Temperance to your hot tab in your items menu so that you can always just cycle through it and activate it during combat. And the more Temperance charges you have by activating them in that left-hand skill menu, the better, because you can activate these multiple times in a boss fight. And being able to activate your Temperance 2 or 3 times in a boss encounter can be the difference of you winning or losing said boss fight. Now let's talk about these red doors that you're going to find throughout your playthrough. You're going to find these randomly just hidden around in the environment, and when you try to open these doors, it's normally going to give you one of 2 options, and depending on what option you pick, it's either going to teleport you to a random location, normally creating a bit of a shortcut, or it might give you a piece of gear or an outfit or a new weapon that you wouldn't normally have. Now, you can only activate these bonus rooms once per playthrough. If you decide to play again on New Game Plus after you beat the game and you choose the opposite option, you're going to get a different outcome than on your first playthrough. So if you want to experience everything that the game has to offer and see everything behind all these bonus doors, you're going to have to play through the game a second or third time. Then lastly, I want to go over Madness. Now, Madness is a new mechanic where the more madness that builds up, the more damage you'll deal to enemies, but the more damage you'll take. And once you have over half madness, your character's eyes will turn red to sort of give you a visual indicator of how much madness you're currently at. And if you die when you're at full madness, then a demon or an invader will spawn at your death location, so you won't be able to reclaim your lost Mercury until you kill the demon. And if you die to the demon, then you're going to lose out on all of that Mercury and essentially a couple level ups and have to start all over. So in the beginning, the demon is a lot harder and a lot scarier, but as you progress through the game, the demon isn't all that hard to deal with. So I ended up just always playing with high madness, so that way I would deal more damage. Now, you can raise or lower your madness by consuming certain items or using the invoke menu at the shrines to exchange some madness points for for some useful items. And if the demon is ever giving you trouble and you just want to play it safe so you don't lose out on your Mercury, you can try to get the demon to hit other enemies. That way it aggroes onto them, and then the enemies will fight the demon for you, and you don't have to risk losing out on all your stuff. So that is going to do it for all the tips and tricks in my Wuchang Fallen Feathers beginner guide. Hopefully this is enough information to point you guys in the right direction and avoid some of those mistakes that I made in my playthrough. I had to learn a lot of this stuff the hard way, and a lot of this stuff I didn't realize until 20 to 30 hours in, and it would have been way more useful if I knew it on like hour 8 instead of hour 30. So if this video helped you out at any point, then consider giving me a thumbs up because it's greatly appreciated and it helps show this video to other people in the algorithm. If you're new here, hit the subscribe button and hit the bell for notifications. That way you don't miss out on any future videos that I make. So that is going to do it for me, guys, and I will talk to you all in the next video.